All right, I will say good morning, a good night. Let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Sure to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei, Jerry and Sarah Wolaski, for dedicating all of the Sherman Drushos this month in the schus of Fushlimer for their grandsons Zechariah Dov, Ben Perel Shira, Shani and Avram Kelman in memory of their beloved parents, and in the schus of all those who need a Fushlimer, Dr. Linda Weinberg in loving memory of her husband, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Paris, Moshe Ben Avram, David, Leah Sol, as a schus for the Fushlimer for her daughter Ilana Bas Esther, and for all those in need of Yeshuas. Our week of learning sponsors, Ira Gross in memory of his father, Melech Ben Azriel, Valerie Osipov as the schus for Shalima for Irina Bas Brilliant. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all the Neshamos Havan Aliyah, the families in the Nechama, and all those who require refuah should have one together with Kol Chole Yisrael. And is this Chola? And in the schus for Shalima for Rafael Shlomo Baruch Ben Tzipora. In Meretz Hashem, we should have a refuah together with Kol Chole Yisrael. Well, so with that, let us begin. So a lot to do today, Baruch Hashem. Another great daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Nun Gimel 53. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Nun Beis and with Beis 52b at the 2 dots. So which is 3 lines down into the wide line. So a fascinating story. So the Gemara says this house. Tana Abanon. Gemara tells the story. After Rabbi Meir passed away, Rabbi Yehuda said to his students, Ayikansu Talmid Rabbi Akiva Lakan. This is actually fascinating. Rabbi Meir dies. Rabbi Yehuda makes a proclamation, a statement. I don't want the students of Rabbi Meir coming to my shir. I don't want them coming. Why? So the Gemara says, because they're contrarians. Right, they're contrarians, they're difficult guys, they're always asking questions. They're not coming to learn, but rather they're just simply coming to go ahead and try to, lapcheni means literally, again, like to cut me off. To go ahead and just ask questions. Or we'll say, in life you have people like this who don't ask questions for the sake of understanding or clarifying things, but just ask questions for the sake of asking questions, or just becoming inquisitive for the sake of being difficult, not really for the advancement, their own personal advancement. So apparently Rabbi Yehuda held this opinion of the students of Rabbi Meir, and felt that they were just going to come to ask questions in order to stare him. Dachak Sumchus v'nichnas. So what happened? Sumchus, who was one of the Talmid of Rabbi Meir, Dachak means he pushed his way into shir. So what happened? Amar lahem, kach shana li Rabbi Meir. So Sumchus now pipes up in shir, right? First day in shir, he pipes up in shir and he says, Rabbi Meir taught me the following. Shana li Rabbi Meir, kamikadosh bechelko ben b'chadshei kadashim ben b'chadshei kalim lo kiddush. If a kohen is mekadosh a woman with his portion of either kadshei kadashim, which are higher sanctity karbanos, or kadshim kalim, lower sanctity karbanos, lo kiddush. The kiddushin is not good. Okay. Kaas Rabbi Yehuda aleim. Rabbi Yehuda got angry. He got angry. He says, Amar lahem, lo kach amarti lachem al yikansu t'mitamid Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Meir lekan. So Rabbi Yehuda gets angry. He says, you see? Exactly what I was saying before. This is why I don't want the students of Rabbi Meir coming into my shir. They're just contrarian personalities, just looking to ask questions in order to stare things, in order to uproot, in order to undermine. They're not coming to learn. They're just coming to confuse me, or they're coming to undermine me with foolish questions. Now both say, now the truth is, what's so crazy about Sumchus' question? To which Rabbi Yehuda responds, how would a woman ever be in the Azara? There's both say, remember again, Kodshei Kadoshim, higher sanctity karbanos, can only be consumed in what we call Ezras Yisrael, which is ultimately, again, remember, you're walking into the interior courtyard, not the Ezras Noshim, which is the exterior courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, but Ezras Yisrael, which is the interior courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. So remember, again, you'd already be entering in, you're going up the steps, through the platform, through the gateway, into the interior courtyard. That's where the Mizbeach was, that's where the entry ultimately, again, into the Kodesh was, the Heichal was. Women aren't allowed there. Women can't go there. Only Kohanim, only male Kohanim could be there. So ask Rabbi Meir, ask Rabbi Yehuda, it's a crazy question. Of course a Kohen can't be Mekadesh a woman. Ultimately, again, with Kadshei Kadashim, there's no way for her to receive the Kiddushin inside of the Kodesh or inside of the Ezras Yisrael. So I will say this was Rabbi Yehuda's raya that the Talmidim of Rabbi Meir just come to start trouble. They're not coming to actually learn. So what happens? Rabbi Yossi. So we'll say, so now this is the standoff that is occurring inside of the base medrash, right? So Sumchus, the student of Rabbi Meir, is putting forward his question. Rabbi Yehuda is saying, you see, this is why I didn't want to allow any of them into the base medrash. Rabbi Sumchus asked this question, and you even see Rabbi Yehuda feels the question itself is so ridiculously foolish. Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi is standing there watching this entire thing. He says, Yomru, Meir Shachav. This is what people are going to say. Rabbi Meir is dead. Yehuda Kas. Rabbi Yehuda is getting angry. Yossi Shasak, and Yossi did nothing about this. So Rabbi Yossi sees really what is just a very uncomfortable and unfortunate situation unfolding right in front of him. Right, so what happens? Rabbi Yossi feels, I can't do nothing. Torah Mate'aleh, what's going to happen to Torah? To which Rabbi Yossi responds, V'chi ein adam asui lekabel Kiddushin lebito ba'azara. So again, Rabbi Yossi says, listen, Rabbi Yehuda, calm down. It is possible to have a case like this. Where can you have a case like this? Where the woman in question appoints another Kohen to go ahead and be her shaliach to receive the Kiddushin. So you can have a case like this. So therefore, again, we'll call him Ruvain, the Kohen, the husband. Right, he wants to marry Rachel. Rachel appoints another Kohen. We'll call him Aaron to receive the Kiddushin on her behalf. So Aaron, a Kohen, could receive the Kodesh Kadoshim meat from Ruvain, the Kohen, in the Ezra Yisrael. You can have a case like that, right? Or again, or it could be the father also. Right? Ultimately, again, a woman can make, so again, if Rachel could appoint her father, who's a Kohen, potentially to be her shaliach, she can appoint someone else to be her shaliach. Furthermore, again, it could be that Sumchus was asking, or that the case could be, although a woman is not supposed to enter into Ezras Yisrael, she did. She did. So it'll be the halacha if she did, and she received the Kodesh Kadoshim meat as her Kiddushin. So we'll say the point that Rabbi Meir is trying to make over here is, a case like this could occur. Sorry, Rabbi Yossi trying to make over here is that a case like this could occur. We'll say there are many lessons to be gleaned from this particular story. Number one, I will say, is how it's so interesting that once we develop a perception about someone else, everything we perceive about that person fits into that pre-established narrative. And I will say this is a very dangerous thing. And we know this, right? But say, think about someone who you really don't like, because don't say you don't have one, right? Again, who you've had just very bad interactions with. The entire way you engage with that person is based on the way in which you view them. So that person could say to you, good morning, it's already afternoon, what's the matter with you? Right? Why are you saying it like that? And everything I see about that, we all have people like this, everything I see about that person, I'm viewing it through that lens of negativity. And it's one of the hardest things, and I'll say that's why often negative relationships are unable to turn around. Not they're unable, but often we don't turn them around because they're just negativity building upon negativity, because everything that happens, I'm viewing through that lens of negativity, which I will say is so important, because if we do have a negative relationship that we want to turn around, it's so important to say, okay, maybe I need to cleanse the filter a little bit, because maybe everything I'm taking in from this person is building up negativity. Maybe they don't mean it that way. And see, and the riot is, look what happens. Rabbi Huda has this preconceived notion, maybe well-earned, preconceived notion of Talmid of Rabbi Meir. So Simchas walks in, he asks the question, right? Rabbi Huda's like, you see, I told you, this is it. And like, well, I don't understand, what's the big deal? He just asked the question. But again, when you hold preconceived notions of people, so ultimately, again, everything you experience is viewed through that lens of preconcivity. Not a word, right? But you understand, right? Everything is viewed through that particular lens. That's lesson number one, I will say. Again, how important sometimes in relationships, if you have a relationship that is difficult and you want to get it on the rails, you need a shtickle relationship reset. And the reset is I'm going to condition myself not to necessarily read in a negative narrative into what this person is saying to me, despite past occurrences. I'm going to start new. I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to try to take their words just for what they are without any overlying narrative. That's number one. Number two, I will say, Rabbi Yossi. That's what I learned from Yehuda. What did I learn from Yossi? We'll say so often in life, we see things occurring, and we know that they're wrong. We know that they're wrong, but we don't take a stand. And when I say take a stand, I don't mean like a macha, but I mean like we don't do anything. We don't do anything. Sometimes we see our children doing things, and if I say something, I'm going to alienate them, I'm going to this, I'm going to that, and we don't do anything. We don't do anything. Or sometimes we see things happening within Klal Yisrael, we see things happening in community. Now again, does it take a lot of chachma to know when to take a stand on something versus when to let something go? Absolutely. There are people who take a stand on everything, and people who take a stand on everything, their word becomes absolutely meaningless. And then there are people who, and I'll use this lashon, hide behind shalom. I would say shalom is a very important value, but some people use shalom as an excuse to not stand up for certain things. I don't want to make waves. It's good not to make waves, and it's good to be ish shalom. Sometimes we hide behind shalom simply because you don't have enough backbone to do what needs to be done or to say what needs to be said in difficult times. So the God, Rabbi Yossi says, look, I could just ignore this. But Torah matahei aleha. What's going to happen if Jews can't talk to each other? What's going to happen if Jews can't learn with each other? What's going to happen if Jews can't ask questions for each other? What is the future going to hold? Rabbi Yossi could have easily received in Shabbos, say, what do you see from a story like this? What was everyone else doing in the base medrash? What was everyone else doing? Right? Nothing. It's the same thing as the Kamsa Bar Kamsa story. He'll say, people generally don't want to get involved. People generally just want to stand by the sidelines, mind their own business, and just go on with their life. That's how it becomes Bar Kamsa. And what's happening in Beis Medrash? Rabbi Yossi is the only guy who sees it. Only person who sees this. Everyone saw it. Just most decided not to get involved. Rabbi Yossi has the courage to say, if I don't get involved over here, this machlokis is going to cause such a rupture. Torah matela, Rabbi says sometimes in life you don't have the luxury not to get involved. Sometimes you don't have the luxury not to stand up. Such an incredible story. Let's go back to Tanya. Rabbi Yehuda says, so I'll say, so Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mekudesha. So we'll say, so now we're focusing on the concept over here. So let's go back, and let's talk about this just a bit. So what happens if you have a Kohen who does want to be Mekadesh a woman with Kacheh Kadashim or Kachim Kalim? So what is the halacha? He gives a piece of sacrificial meat to this woman. What is the status ultimately again of this Kiddushin? Rabbi Yehuda says, Mikudeshes, it works. Rabbi Yossi Omer Eid Mikudesh. Rabbi Yossi says it's not Mikudeshes, it doesn't work. Rabbi Yochanan Shtei Mikra Echad Darsha. They both dash in the same pasuk. V'zeh Yelecha Mikodesh Hakadashim Min Ha'esh. The pasuk when talking about the Kohanic portion says to the Kohanim, this is the portion that will be for you from the Eish, from the fire. Okay, so watch this. I will say. Rabbi Yehuda Savar L'cha U'L'cha Tzachecha. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kachei Kadashim belong to you. What does it mean they belong to you? They belong to you and for whatever you need, i.e. even for Kiddushin. Rabbi Yossi Savar Ke'esh. No, Kachei Kadashim is just like fire. Ma'esh La'achila, just like fire. We'll say the fire represents the portion to Hashem. So just like the portion to Hashem, so to speak, what does the Ribono Shel Olam get out of Karbanos? What does he get? They're consumed by the fire. Kadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol gets consumption. Afunami lachilo. So to Kohanim get consumption, but nothing else. So I will say, so same pasuk, different Joshua. Rabbi Yehuda says, L'cha, it's yours, do with it as you want. Rabbi Yossi, Eish, you get it for consumption, nothing else. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, so I will say top of Nun Gimel 53a. Nimnu v'gamru. Everyone agreed. Hamekadish bechelko b'mikachei kadashim and mikachim kalim lo kiddush. So Rabbi Yochanan comes along and he says the truth is even Rabbi Yehuda kind of got on board with this, right? They got together in the base medrash and everyone agreed that halacha l'maisa Kohen cannot use his sacrificial portion to affect kiddushin. So we have complete agreement on it. Rav says, no, we don't. So isn't this funny? We have a machlokes whether or not we have a machlokes. Only Jews have stuff like this, right? So again, so have Rabbi Yochanan saying, everyone agrees that a Kohen cannot use his sacrificial portion to affect Kiddushin. Rav says, we don't have consensus on that. It's still a machlokes. I'm Rabbi. Rabbi says, Kavasi Rabbi Yochanan Mistabra. I think Rabbi Yochanan is correct that we have consensus. Namely, the Sanyo, is actually very interesting. Minayin shein cholkin minachos kineged zvachim. I will say, okay, so now this is the topic we're going to be dealing with over here. So if you're a Kohen, So remember again, let's say now it's your Mishmar's week, right? So on any given, right, so when you're working in the Beis HaMikdash, you're going to be entitled to a whole host of carbonic portions over the course of that week. So let's say again, I want to trade my portion. So for example, I'm a Kohen, I'm on a low carb diet. So what I would like to do is I'd like to trade my mincha for a piece of meat. Right, I want to trade. You take my mincha, I'll go ahead and take my meat. Or I was going to say, if you're a vegetarian, but if you're a Kohen vegetarian, I think you're pasul avoda. I don't know what to do with that. Right? So again, so when I say, I know it doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. Anyway, so I'll say, but that's the key story. So we want to talk about a Kohen kind of trading portions with other Kohanim. So you must like this. How do you know that you can't trade a mincha for a carbon? Talmud Lomar, v'chol mincha sher te'afeh betanor. Both say, so this is an extra phrase. This v'chol mincha sher te'afeh betanor is an extra phrase. L'chol b'nei Aaron tiyeh should be for the sons of Aaron. So both say, so that extra phrase teaches us that halacha l'maisa. Rashi actually says, "Kol mincha, mashu mincha asi yachlok b'nei Aaron." So I'm sorry, this is not an extra phrase. They're dashing over here that every mincha, the sons of Aaron will have a portion, meaning whatever portion is yours, and you cannot exchange that with or force with someone else for something else. You can't barter sacrificial portions for other sacrificial portions. So I would have thought maybe I only can't trade a mincha for a carbon. Because Rabbi say the truth is minchas and carbonos are not usually interchangeable. In other words, that let's say there's a particular carbon. There's no such thing as bringing a mincha instead of a carbon. Maybe I should be able to barter a mincha for a bird offering. Why? Because we'll say certain bird offerings, if you're not able to afford the bird, you can bring a mincha instead. So we see those carbonos are already sacrificially interchangeable. So because of that, maybe I should be able to barter my portions. Tamalomar, v'chol na'aseh b'marcheshas, l'chol b'nei Aaron tiyeh. So Rabbi will say, the pasuk says, this is an extra phrase, anything that's made of the marcheshas, we'll define that in just a moment, should be for the sons of Aaron. Yachol, lo yachloku minachos kineged ofos. So I thought, fine. I can't go ahead and barter a mincha portion for a bird portion. Shalalu minei damim v'halalu minei k'machim. Because the truth is, there are two different types of offerings. One requires a blood application, and one is just flour. Avayachloku ofos kineged zvachim shalalu v'halalu minei damim. But I should be able to barter what? Bird portions for sacrificial meat portions, because they're both again blood applications. Tamalomar al machlas. So we'll say these are all extra phrases. So the Gemara is using the extra phrases ultimately to teach me that halacha l'maisa, whatever portion you get in a particular carbon cannot be traded or bartered for a different portion. Yachal lo yachlaku ofos kineged zvachim. I might have thought I can't go ahead and trade or barter birds for other animal offerings. Shalalu ma'asem biyad, valalu ma'asem b'kli. Well, so remember again, how do you shecht a bird offering? Malika, with your hand, versus an animal which is shechted with a knife, with a kli. Maybe that's why you can't barter them. Aval yachloku menachos kineged menachos shalol v'alo ma'aseim biyad. So we'll say, remember, we're going to see in just a moment, in the world of mincha offerings, there are different types of menachos. So maybe I should be able to barter one type of mincha for another type of mincha. Tamalomar v'chol mincha belula b'Hashem l'chol b'nei Aaron. Yachol lo yachloku. Lo yachloku machvas kineged marcheshes umarcheshes kineged machvas. So we'll say fine. So I might have thought, even in the world of menachos, I can't barter or trade two dissimilar menachos. So for example, we'll say minchas machvas is a mincha made in a shallow pan, like a wafer type of mincha, versus a minchas marcheshes, which was deep dish mincha. So, right? So deep dish mincha is, or deep pan mincha, deep dish mincha is soft. So I will say, so listen to this. I might have thought I can't trade two different types of menachos, because the minchas machvas is a thin like wafer type, and ultimately, The minchas marcheshes is a deep dish mincha, and it's soft. V'zu masem kashim, but the minchas machvas, the shallow pan mincha, ultimately that's harder. That's like a wafer. Avayachloku machvas keneged machvas, umarcheshes keneged marcheshes, shalolo v'alolo masem kashim, inami masem rakim. But I'm going to say, should be able to trade similar minachos for one another. In other words, I will say, let's say just today, I'm not in the mood for the mincha. So I want to say to my fellow Kohen, listen, you take my marcheshes today, I'll take your marcheshes tomorrow. So I will say, so here what I'm bartering is similar karbanos. I might have thought I could do that. Tamulomar v'chariva l'chol b'nei aron tiya. So I will say, so no, sa'aloch l'maisa, halacha l'maisa, the extra pasuk again teaches me, I will say, you can't trade karbanos. You can't trade karbanos. So again, you can't trade similar karbanos, you can't trade dissimilar karbanos, you can't barter sacrificial portions. Yachal lo yachleku b'kodesh hakadoshim, aval yachleku b'kodshei kalim. Sana that I will say, maybe I only can barter in kodshei kadoshim, higher sanctity karbanos, but maybe lower sanctity kodshim kalim I can. Talmud will say first white line, ish ke'achav v'samach lei imal toda kishem shein cholkim b'kodshei kadoshim kach in cholkim b'kodshim kalim. So I will say ultimately again, the pasuk imal toda is kodshei kalim. Kodshei kalim. So you see over here that the same halachos that apply to kodshei kadoshim apply to kodshim kalim as well. So I will say so incredible. So this just a fascinating halacha, that halacha l'maisa, you can't, if you're a Kohen, you can't barter carbonic portions, right? You can't barter similar portions. You can't barter dissimilar portions. Kodshei kadoshim. Gemara finished off the drasha. Ish. Most of when the pasuk says ish, what does that teach me? Ish cholek afilu b'almum then katan cholek. Now I will say in the actual division of karbanos, every kohanic male has the ability to share in the portions, even a balmum. Very interesting. See, I will say even a kohen who has a mum, a kohen who has a blemish, who can't do the avoda, has the right to share in karbanos, but not a katan. So a minor kohen cannot. Va'afilu tam. So fine. So we'll say, so all of this, stam sifra money. And I will say, this brisa is a sifra. Sifra is medrash, but it's medrash halacha. Who is the author of stam sifra? Rabbi Huda. V'huda ka'amar deles beidin chaluka klan. I will say, here's what's interesting. What do you learn from the fact that a Kohen cannot barter his sacrificial portion? What do you learn from that? What do you learn from that? That it's not his. That it's not his. That's the whole chap. That when you're eating it, whose does it belong to? Who does it belong to? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Kohen eats, like the phrase we saw yesterday, me'al shulchan gavoa, from the table of the Ribono Shalom. It's not yours. It's not yours. Now, I both say, because it's not yours, what else? You can't barter. What else can't you do with it? What else can't you do with it? Can't use it for Kiddushin. So I both say, now remember again, who's the author of a Stam Sifra? Who's the author of this Brisa, of this Medrash? Rabbi Huda. And Rabbi Huda is going on record as saying, Kohen does not own his sacrificial portion, which would then mean that Kohen can't do Kiddushin with it as well. Now I both say, let's go back. Remember again, originally Rabbi Huda was on record as saying what? That if a Kohen is Mekadesh Woman with Kodshei Kadoshim or Kodshim Kalim, is Mekudeshas. Rabbi Yochanan came along and said, even Rabbi Huda came around and agreed that you cannot use sacrificial portions for Kiddushin, and they had consensus. Rav said no. Rabbi Huda still held his ground. Now, both say from this price, so what do you see from here? That Rabbi Huda clearly retracted his original position. Rabbi Huda got on board and said that halacha l'maisa, you cannot use sacrificial items to affect Kiddushin. So as the Gemara says, Shema Mina. Indeed, see that this is correct. Rabbi Yochanan is correct, and now everyone is on board saying that halacha l'maisa, you cannot use sacrificial items in order to go at kodshei kadoshim or kodshim kalim to affect Kiddushin. Incredible. Amar Rava, ukirad milatani. Rav says, one second. You don't think we have a brayset to support Rav? That Rabbi Huda still disagrees. After Rav Tanya, we learned vatznuim moshchem es yadehem v'hagargarim cholkim. They will say this is not the kohanim. The kohanim will say the tznuim, the modest kohanim, moshchem es yadehem, would remove their hand from the lechem aponim. V'hagargarim cholkim. Gargarim will say like the gargar is like glutton. Thank you, like a glutton, like a gargar. Like it says it right. I think the Hebrew, you can even hear it, like what it is, right? The gluttonous kohanim, right? Like the gluttonous kohanim, cholkim. They both say, We're assuming what cholkim means over here is they would go ahead and barter their portions. Now, what is this talking about? So we'll say this is an incredible Rashi. Take a look at Rashi. First wide line in Rashi. This is beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's sad. Gabi lechem apanim, Tanya. Remember again, lechem apanim, 12 loaves of bread that were placed on the shulchan, right inside of the kodesh, right? So you would walk into the heichal, you'd walk into the antechamber, to the ulam of the Beis Hamikdash. From the heichal, then you'd walk into the primary chamber called the kodesh of the actual Beis Hamikdash, and you would go ahead and you would see there a couple of things. You would see there the mizbeach hakitoras, the small altar for incense, and then you would also see the shulchan, the table. On that table were 2 stacks, and on those stacks were placed 6 loaves of bread each, 12 loaves of lechem apanim. They were replaced, I will say, every Shabbos, and then what would happen is the loaves were divided up amongst the exiting mishmar. So remember again, the mishmar, particular mishmar, worked in the Beis Hamikdash for a week. When they were finished on Shabbos, that was the changing of the mishmar. The old mishmar would get the lechem apanim that was on the shulchan, and new lechem would be put on. So watch this Rashi. Rashi says, "Arbaim shana sheshimish Shimon HaTzadik." So we'll say, remember again, for the 40 years that Shimon HaTzadik was the Kohen Gadol. Now remember again, when was Shimon HaTzadik the Kohen Gadol? So remember again, this was First Temple era. Remember again, Shimon HaTzadik Haya Mishiyarei Knesses Hagdola. Pirkei Avos, we have Shimon HaTzadik. So remember again, the 40 years that Shimon HaTzadik was the Kohen Gadol. Nishtalcha bracha b'lechem apanim. I'm reading Rashi. There was incredible bracha in the lechem apanim, in the showbread. V'chol kohen hamagia kezayis yesh ochel v'saveya yesh ochel amos. We'll say, what was the miracle? The miracle was every kohen got a kezayis of lechem apanim, and I will say he was filled from the kezayis. One kezayis lechem apanim totally filled him. Not only that, some kohanim got so full they couldn't even finish the kezayis. That was the bracha lechem apanim. Mikan ve'elach. I will say, unfortunately, after Shimon HaTzadik, nishtalcha me'era b'lechem apanim. Literally, again, there was a curse on lechem apanim. Not a curse, but again, the bracha that was showered upon the Beis Hamikdash during the days of Shimon HaTzadik was no longer there. V'chal kohen hamagio kipul. So let's say, so what happened? So first of all, the kohanim didn't get a kezayis. They only got like a very small amount. Hatznu and moshchem yedei mimenu. So the modest kohanim, they simply didn't take. They didn't take. The lo mahani lohumidi. So I'll say, now they didn't take. Now why didn't they take? They didn't take. I'll say, because generally the amount of kachim you need to eat is a kezayis. So they knew they weren't going to get enough, and also they also knew that it wasn't going to fill them. So therefore, the tznuim decided, you know what? They decided to pass on their portion of lechem apanim. V'agargarim cholkim. Now the ravenous, or the gluttonous kohanim, cholkim. Now Rashi says over here, v'kasanka daitra the hay chalukin lav lito chalkam agia kamar kevin shachar. So let's go back to the Gemara now. Now we're assuming that cholkim means the gargarim, the gluttonous kohanim, would take their portion of lechem apanim. What would they do? They would trade it for other kohanic portions. So we'll say, if you could trade your portion of lechem apanim, what does that show you? What does that show you? That it's yours. That it's yours. So that would seem to support Rav's view that Rabbi Yehuda was still of the opinion that ultimately, again, sacrificial portions belong to the Kohanim. To which the Gemara says, no, back to the Gemara. My cholkim, what does cholkim mean? Chotfim. We'll say it doesn't mean that the gluttonous Kohanim would go ahead and trade lechem apanim. Rather, what it means is they would go ahead and grab the extra portion. They would grab additional amounts, ultimately, again, from the lechem apanim. Kediktani seifa. So we'll say. So here what's happening over here. The gluttonous kohanim would not go ahead and take a little bit, but rather, again, they would take a lot of the lechem apanim. So they would grab up as much as they could. So the Gemara says, "My cholkim cholkim kediktani seifa ma'isa be'echad shechatav chelko v'chilek chavero." There was once a Kohen who took his portion, his friend's portion. Vayikarin also ben chamtzon ad yomoso. So the Gemara tells the story. There was a Kohen who went ahead and took his portion, took his friend's portion, and ultimately they called him Ben Chamtzon. Ben Chamtzon. We're going to see the meaning of that word until the day that he died. So Rabbi Barav Shila, a micro, what's the pasuk? So we'll say, so again, so the point over here is, this is not a proof to Rav. Right? The idea over here is no one's trading sacrificial portions. These ravenous kohanim would just go ahead and take as much lechem upon him as they wanted. Amar Rav Shila, Ma'ikra, what's the pasuk? Elokai, Paltini miad rasha, mikaf ma'ol v'chometz. So Rabbi Amar Rehacha, limdu heitev darshu mishpat ashru chamotz. So Rashi says over here, ashru chamotz, hechziku yad anigzal. So you see the lashon of chamotz is lashon of someone who is stolen from. Right, the victim of theft. So they called this guy Ben Chamson. He's the one who steals from other kind. I will say it's actually fascinating to contemplate that this individual ultimately again gets his name from this one event. Right? They called him Ben Chamson for the rest of his life. Why? Because Lamaisa, he grabbed up lechem apart from other kind. So what do you see from here? You see from here that there are events in life that define us. Right? In other words, it's true that life is made up of a series of smaller events which place us on a trajectory, but then there are also certain major pivotal events that determine, the direction of our life in a much more dramatic way. Sometimes we don't know in life what are the major events and what are the smaller events. And also, how incredible is it? One time, this guy just grabbed up a whole bunch of lechem upon him. And what occurred? That determined his identity. That was the event, that was the pivotal event that determined. So they called him Ben Chamson for the rest of his life. What else do you see from here, boss? What else do you see from here? Clearly, he never did tshuva. I never did tshuva, because had he done tshuva, then what? They wouldn't have called him that, because we'll say, this in Mefurish Halacha in Hilchos Tshuva, in the Rambam writes that when someone does tshuva, ultimately, again, in maskir and lavanos, if you're not allowed to remind them, right, about tshuva, you can't remind them of his past deeds. So the fact that they continue to call him Ben Chamson, right, throughout his entire life would seem to be indicative, number one, that he never did tshuva. I will say, number two, how careful we have to be with the decisions we make. Because sometimes in life what appears as a small, relatively irrelevant decision could be the decision that ultimately solidifies and concretizes your identity and places you on a particular road in life. So overwhelming. Let's go back there. Says the Gemara. So we'll say now back to the rest of the Mishnah. Meiser Sheni. So we'll say, so now we've established halacha l'maisa. Everyone agrees, Kachei Kadoshim, Kachim Kalim, do not belong to Kohanim. Kohanim have consumption rights, right? Who are they eating from? Ultimately, again, Me'al Shulchan Gavoa. They are consuming that which belongs to the Ribono Shel Olam, because it doesn't belong to them. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, they can't use it for Kiddushin. Okay, so that's our purposes in Mishnah. But I'll say the next part of the Mishnah then focused on Meiser Sheni, right? Meiser Sheni, ultimately again, and Hekdish. So remember again, by Meiser Sheni, what are the Gemaras according to the Mishnah? Meiser Sheni ben Shogeg ben Mezid, lo ki Yisrael Meir. So we'll say Rabbi Meir holds, Meiser Sheni belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, if you use Meiser Sheni to betroth a woman, whether you use it b'shogeg or b'mezid, it doesn't work. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shogeg lo kidesh, mezid kidesh. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you used it b'shogeg, it doesn't work. If you used it b'mezid, it does work. So let's analyze this. Minahani mili. So we'll say, focusing more on the sheet of Rabbi Meir, that Meiser Sheni is mamon gavoa. That Meiser Sheni belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So from where do we know that Meiser Sheni is not the property of the Yisrael, but belongs to Hashem? From where do we know this? The Gemara, who kodesh laHashem, who kodesh laHashem. So I'll say something read again. V'chamaser aretz mizera aretz mepriya es laHashem, laHashemu kodesh laHashem, laHashemhu v'lo lekadesh bo isha. So I'll say, what do you see from here? When the Torah describes Meiser Sheni, Meiser, it says it's kodesh laHashem. So what does it mean it's kodesh laHashem? It belongs to the Ribono Shel Olam. You have the right, or you have the obligation, to take it to Yerushalayim to consume it, but lamaisa, it belongs to the Ribono Shel Olam and cannot be used for Kiddushin purposes. So remember, says 1 second. Hare Trumas Meiser. So I'll say, what's Trumas Meiser? Trumas Meiser is, remember again, the Levi gets Meiser, and then the Levi is obligated to separate out a portion of his Meiser for the Kohen. That portion is called Trumas Meiser. What about Trumas Meiser? D'chsiv, Kein Tarimu Gam Atem Trumas Hashem. So the Torah calls Trumas Meiser. Sorry, the Torah describes Trumas Meiser as Trumas Hashem. So why don't you say the same thing over here as well? Now we learned Hamakdish B'Truma Mikudash. As yet, I will say we learned that if a Kohen is Mekadosh with Truma, that it does work. To which the Gemara says, Delo Ksiv Be LaHashem. it says Hashem, but it doesn't say La Hashem. Meiser, right? Meiser Sheni, it says La Hashem. It belongs to Hashem. V'harechalo, dichsiv ba titnu La Hashem. What about by Chala? By Chala, you shall give it to Hashem. Utinan mekadesh b'trumos mekudashos. So I will say, yet it says that if a kohen is mekadesh with trumos, so I will say, trumos means any portion that's coming to the kohen. That includes Chala. So you see from me that you could betroth the woman Chala as well. Telo ksiv kodesh. So I will say, it says La Hashem, but it doesn't say Kodesh La Hashem. Varishvias, what about Shemitah? Dichsiv ba yovel hu Kodesh tiyeh lochem. It says Kodesh by Shemitah. Utinan mekadesh yiperu shvias mekudeshes. Yeah, we also say we learn that if you're mekadesh with Shemitah produce, it works. The loksiv be La Hashem. So you begin to see the formula over here. In order for something to be considered to be the property of God and therefore unusable for Kiddushin, it has to say what? Kodesh La Hashem. So all these other examples, again, have either Kodesh or have La Hashem or Hashem, but that's not enough to make it prohibited for use for Kiddushin. I've already Truma about Truma D'chsev Kodesh Yisrael La Hashem Reishis Tevuaso. So I will say here by Truma you have Kodesh and La Hashem. Utnan Mekadesh Truma Kodesh. There we learn that if you're Mekadesh Truma Truma, it works. So what's going on over here? Hahu B'Yisrael Ksiv. No, I will say it's incredible. That Kodesh Yisrael La Hashem, that's referring not to the Truma. What is it referring to? Klal Yisrael. Let's say how beautiful. How beautiful. It's reference to Klal Yisrael. Ultimately, Klal Yisrael is Kodesh La Hashem. So the Gemara says, V'la Amud Beis, V'la Namel Shamas. So I would say, I don't understand. But still, if Klal Yisrael is Kodesh La Hashem, why can't, Gemara 53b, why can't I learn from the pasuk that the Truma is also Kodesh La Hashem? So which the Gemara says, Targime Rabin Saba Kameid Rav Amakra Hu Bav Yasa Yehe. Well, say it's different because by Truma the Torah used Lashon of Hu. Hu means it remains in its state. In other words, just like, again, its present state, ultimately, again, it is usable by the kohen for whatever it is that he needs. So it is going to be eligible, ultimately, again, for Kiddushin as well. So I'll say, so bottom line, so remember, we're focusing now just particularly on the Shita of Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir holds that Allah Lamaisa, by Meiser Sheni, you can't use a Meiser Sheni to go ahead and affect Kiddushin. Why not? Because I will say, ultimately, again, by Meiser Sheni, the reason is the pasuk says, Kodesh La Hashem. Kodesh La Hashem. So we'll say, so I just want to point out, what's the unique thing over here? Even though Meiser Sheni, remember again, I, the Yisrael, I'm allowed to eat it. I just have to eat it in Yerushalayim. I can even redeem it, transfer a secondary onto money. But Lamaisa, it is still considered to be the property of the Ribono Shel Olam. And therefore, again, Halacha Lamaisa, I can't use it for Kiddushin. I will say, we're going to see that is indeed the Halacha Lamaisa. And again, the interesting part of it is the Gemara is contrasting Meiser with all these other things. So you could use Chala, you could use Truma. Again, Rabbi Meir's understanding is it's a unique concept by Meiser Sheni because the Torah uses the phrase Kodesh La Hashem. Incredible. Let's go right there. Ubehekdish b'mezid Kidesh b'shogeg lo Kidesh divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'shogeg Kidesh b'mezid lo Kidesh. So now we're moving on to Hegdish. So remember again, if a man betrothed woman with Hegdish, so again the way the Mishnah read is Rabbi Meir's Shita is if you did it b'mezid, then the Kiddushin works. If you did it b'shogeg, the Kiddushin doesn't work. That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says if you did it b'shogeg, it works, b'mezid it doesn't work. So let's analyze what's going on over here. I'm Rabbi Yaakov, Shamas Mina Rabbi Yochanan Tarti. We can learn that from Yochanan's Shita, two things. Number one, Shigagas Meiser Rabbi Yehuda, Shigagas Haitish Rabbi Meir. I will say both in the case of accidental use of Meiser Sheni to betroth the woman, all right, and Shigagas Hektish, or accidental use of, so that's accidental use of Meiser Sheni according to Rabbi Yehuda, and accidental use of Hektish according to Rabbi Meir, Shnehem Ein Isha Miskadeshes Bohen. So I will say in both cases, Kiddushin doesn't work. So again, accidental use of Meiser Sheni, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and accidental use of Hektish by Rabbi Meir for Kiddushin. Kiddushin will not work in both of these cases. Chada lefi shein isha rotza, and one of the cases because the woman does not want the item, right? V'chada lefi shein shnei rotzim. The other case is because neither of them want the item. So I will say the problem is we don't know which is which. I'm going to be Yirmiyah. Next Sanan, let's analyze this. Next Sanan, Meiser ihi lo nechale mishum tircha de'archa. So Yirmiyah says, I'll tell you what, the woman is not going to want Meiser Sheni. Rabbi say, why doesn't she want Meiser Sheni? Because what happens if she's betrothed to Meiser Sheni? What has to happen now? She has to take it to Yerushalayim. She doesn't want that tircha, right? Well, what does she need that headache for? I shouldn't say chas v'shalom. It's not a headache to go to Yerushalayim. Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. I'll say, but it's a tircha. In other words, now for her to utilize that Meiser Sheni, she has to take it to Yerushalayim. Ihu nechale denikni isamela. He's more than happy to use Meiser Sheni. We'll say, why is he happy to use Meiser Sheni? Because for him, no sweat off his back, right? In other words, that's easy. That's easy. On the other hegdish, Tavai lo nechalu. I will say, by hektish, neither would want it to be used for Meiser for Kiddushin. Why? The nischil hektish al yadayu. Because I will say, remember again. Let's be clear. When you're using hektish for Kiddushin, I will say, what are you effectively doing? What are you committing? Me'ilah, right? Just the difference is, the shaila is that perhaps through your act of me'ilah, the Kiddushin becomes deconsecrated, and through the deconsecration, it can be used ultimately to affect Kiddushin. But Bepashtas, neither of them wants to go ahead and do me'ilah. So therefore, I both say, it must be in the case of Meiser Sheni, right? So man is happy to use it. Woman is not as happy to use it because of the tircha involved with having to transport it to Yerushalayim. So Rabbi Yaakov says just the opposite. Ibcham is just the opposite is true. Milo ika lemeimar Meiser ihi lo nechalahu mishum tircha de orcha. Ihu lo nechale mishum onsa de orcha. But say it's not true. The truth is, by Meiser Sheni, neither of them really want it to be used. Why? Because Rabbi says she doesn't want it. Why? Because of the tircha involved, right? Because she's going to have to take it to Yerushalayim. He doesn't want it. Rabbi says, listen to this. When a man gives Meiser Sheni to a woman for Kiddushin, Rabbi say, who has responsibility for that Meiser Sheni until it reaches Yerushalayim? The man. Which means if she loses that Meiser Sheni, it's on him. He doesn't want to do that. In other words, for Kiddushin, he wants to use something that the moment he gives it to the woman, right, he's done. He's done. Now, it turns out, if he gives her Meiser Sheni, she takes Yerushalayim, on the way she loses it, or it spoils. He has to replace that Meiser Sheni. So in other words, she doesn't want it because she doesn't want to be bound to taking up her Kiddushin sodas to Yerushalayim. He doesn't want it because he doesn't want to be bound ultimately by responsibility. Ela hekdish, when it comes to hekdish, however, bishlama ihi lo nechale b'nischal hekdish al yada. So we'll say, so a woman in general is not going to want to become mikudeshes with hekdish. Why? Because they both say she doesn't want the deconsecration of hekdish, i.e. me'ilah, through her. Ihi milo nechale dinikni is a samamela. But I will say he's fine with that. In other words, so I'll say, so lemaisa, he's affecting Kiddushin. Okay, so I'll say he's going to have to pay a surcharge, right? In other words, he's going to have to pay the Me'ilah penalty. But Baruch Hashem, he's married. He's married. So that's something he's willing to do, not something she's willing to do. Okay, so I'll say, bless you. So these are the two sides. Let's just do another line, then we'll stop for today. Rav Chisda. So Rav asked Rav Chisda, Isha, Ein miskadesha. So we'll say, let's assume right now that if you were to use hektish money, right, that a woman ultimately again would not. Rashi says over Isha leskadesh hashta mia nechal. I'm sorry. Ha kamina deina mikudeshes b'shiggas choshemer. So it's according to Rabbi Meir, where ultimately again, if a man were to give a woman money of hektish, so according to Rabbi Meir, if it was done b'shogeg, she would not be mikudeshes. So by Isha in miskadeshes maos sheitzi l'chulin. So we'll say here's the shaila. Ultimately, again, even though she's not mikudeshes, does the money become chulin? Does the money become deconsecrated? Amar Isha in miskadeshes maos heich yatzi l'chulin. Of course not. Of course not. Halacha l'maisa. If what? If the money, right? If the kiddushin is not effective, then it will say what? Then the money remains hektish and is not deconsecrated. Not deconsecrated. So we'll say. So we'll stop over here for today. We'll stop with this last case. So we'll say, this last piece is a little bit confusing because what we have over here is really like two streams happening over here. We have ultimately again Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda, right? Ultimately again we have now in hektish, right? Rabbi Meir telling me that if you use the hektish b'mezid it works, b'shogeg it doesn't work. So we'll say just the logic behind that. B'mezid, if you use hektish b'mezid, we'll say what are you doing? Me'ilah. But what Me'ilah generates is a penalty, but at the same time, what else does it do? it deconsecrates the item. Now, once the item has been deconsecrated, then what? Then what? It's yours. Once it's yours, you can go ahead and use it to affect Kiddushin. So under Meir, it's interesting. If you use Hektish b'mezid, ultimately it works. B'shogeg, it doesn't work. Right? Right, b'mezid kiddush b'shogeg, that's right. Rabbi Yehuda says b'shogeg it works, b'mezid it doesn't work. Now, how that works, we're going to see. I will say we'll stop over for today. I will say, so just a reminder, the schedule for tonight is special. I figure we're going to do the daf tonight this way again. I know people are davening at different minyanim over Hoshana Rabbah, and davening either way ends later tomorrow morning. So Hashem 7:30 tonight. In the sukkah, we're going to do Friday's daf. We're going to give ourselves some time also to do it. You don't have. It's nice about doing it after davening in general. We don't have to rush. We'll do a beautiful daf in the sukkah. There might even be some refreshments. There's some rumors about some refreshments flying around. And Mirat Hashem, so that'll be beautiful. And then Chavrei, even if you don't normally come to Chassidus here, Leil Hoshana Rabbah, right after daf, we're going to do Chassidus at 8:30. There's going to be a beautiful Piagetzna, a little bit of singing, a lot of singing. And Mirat Hashem, going to be beautiful. And we'll bring in Leil Hoshana Rabbah together. We'll say Shkoyach. All right, Chavrei Zoom, have a great day, everyone. A good night.
It's pretty high.
It's pretty beautiful. So true. I didn't even think about that. Beautiful.
3 days in a row.
Beautiful.
So what happened to Simchas and the rest of Rabbi Meir's students? Where did they learn?
I'm sorry.
What happened to Simchas and the rest of Rabbi Meir's disciples? Where did they go to learn?
I don't know. It seems to be there was one guy who had this particular